Now, also, speaking of the cost of transition, interesting little bit of detail in the past couple of days, including that obviously some of the decisions that the Labor Party has made, and they deserve credit for this, which is that they have decided to double down on gas as basically being the firming technology to make sure that that is what will eventually power the nation when the wind doesn't blow and the sun doesn't shine. Notice that many state governments are moving to this position as well. So again, they may well think, oh, that's it, all done. But of course, the cost of transition, which I will remain focused on regardless of how many seats there are or aren't in the parliament. It's not an irrelevant issue because people will have to bear the cost. And they tell us that they care, but then sometimes they vote in a different direction, so who knows where they actually feel. But I certainly know how the majority of people who'd be watching this would be feeling, which is, okay, cool, fine to do a bit, but how much more is this going to cost and for how long? Well, the construction of renewables is, of course, hundreds of billions of dollars. The CSIRO a few years ago put it at $1 trillion once you connect it all up with wires. Interesting note that apparently the cost of transition to the renewable grid in Victoria is blowing out by at least $16 billion. The total cost to households and businesses to upgrade the Victoria's electricity grid required to support the shift to renewable energy will now be more than 4 times the $4.3 billion figure that's set out in the transition roadmap, which was unveiled last month. So these numbers already 4 times higher than a report that came out last month. Experts say we're now looking at the best part of $20 billion. The minister who's responsible for all of this released her plan, 15 years, $4.3 billion. But then someone smart decided to go to page 95 of VicGrid's 112-page document, and it does not account for several critical transmission projects, including the Western Renewables Link, which links Victoria and New South Wales, the Interconnector West, and the Marinus Link, which takes you to the hydropower of Tasmania. All of that would be more than $16 billion. So the headline is, how good's this? We're reshaping the world. It's only going to cost us 4.3. Actually look in the fine print, and it's now $16 billion. Nothing to see here, nothing at all. Back to the Libs. And we know that the new Liberal leader, the new opposition leader, Susan Lee, is making her bit to try to get as many people to be introduced to her as possible. I noticed she's done interviews, basically every TV station. I like that she's writing opinion pieces for lots of different newspapers, and I'll get to one that she wrote just this weekend. But there's this very silly term, and I say silly term because this is one of these things that a whole bunch of cool people all use at once and you've never heard it before. It's called the glass cliff.
Susan Lee is the answer then?
Well, it's a very interesting thing, isn't it? When I think whenever a woman gets a post like this, it's always like, oh, here's the job nobody else wanted. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Glass cliff. Which is the cousin of the glass ceiling. I have a funny view on that. Like, I think, yes, it's clearly a factor, but equally men would have wanted this job right now too. Like, there is obviously a hunger for this job.
I can understand the take, though. I mean...
Well, I do too.
So again, glass ceiling, that's the reason why women get to a certain point and not able to go any further due to the evils of the patriarchy. And then the glass cliff being the version where, well, now that you are at the top, see you later. Susan Lee has taken this front on, and good on her for doing so, in a piece that she wrote for the Financial Review. And again, I like that slowly but surely, in the early days of leadership, you go to as many different places as possible and you just state an introduction many years before every people have to make a decision about whether they want to change from what they did, obviously, just a few weeks ago. No one told me about glass cliffs when they placed ads in regional papers across the country to try and land a job at one of the first Australian female mustering pilots. No one warned me about a glass cliff when I went to uni with a baby in a capsule as our family struggled to make ends meet. No one asked me about glass cliffs when I hooked up my caravan, painted it Liberal blue and drove around the Murray to run for Parliament. As for glass cliffs, I couldn't give a stuff. And then she finishes on the metaphor of being a pilot. Cliffs don't matter when you have wings. Good. I love this stuff. Fight, fight, fight. Where this term, again, it may well have existed in universities for a long time and in fashionable parts of the internet, but in terms of common use language, had you heard of glass cliff? of recent weeks, let alone months, potentially even years. But no, mainlined as a way of trying to say the Liberals have a problem with women. You now have a female leader. Yeah, but asterisk, their, of course, fundamental problem is the Liberal Party. They don't want to engage with, full of ideas about what they need to do, how they need to change direction, about what they should mean. None of those people with an interest in actually voting for them. Hence why basically they turn around and say, hey, can you be the left of Australian politics, but just wear different clothes? Because, of course, then they get the result that they want, which is no opposition to things like increasing prices by 10% because of the carbon-intensive nature of the goods that are like a fridge or a car that's made overseas, because we don't make that stuff here, because electricity is very expensive. And why is that at the moment?